The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NBA.
Draymond Green's talking about an NBA championship. So we've talked so much about vibes. It was very important, the Warriors getting out to the 12-3 start that they got out to. They went on the team trip, the camp to Hawaii. They built the chemistry. That was a word that was said out of the gate. We saw the tone and the precedent being set by the veterans, Steph Curry and Draymond Green, with the way they were playing in the preseason. I mean, anyone that remembers that game where they knocked down, I believe it was 27 threes against Sacramento, you remember the tone was set early in that game. That was no fluke. They were playing like that was game 4 of the Western Conference semis. I mean, it was something to watch. But Draymond on the TNT broadcast set with Vince Carter, Candace Parker, and Adam Lefkoe surrounding him, he's getting pestered a little bit. And he just says it. He says flat out, I think we can win a championship. And then he says, I lied. We will win the NBA championship. He looked dead into that camera with a sea of Dub Nation behind him inside outside the confines of Thrive City, and said the Warriors are winning an NBA championship this season. Now, that is the definition of getting ahead of your skis. The Warriors right now don't look the part of an NBA champion. They look the part of a play-in team. They're 28-27. They are 3.5 games back of making the playoffs as the 6th seed. And they are 1.5 games up on the Phoenix Suns just to make the play-in and have a chance to win an NBA championship as a whole. But Draymond Green did say that it feels a little bit different, that this team has found their way since Jimmy Butler has been thrown into the fold. If we know one thing about Draymond Green, it's that he has experience winning and winning a lot. So he knows what a championship team looks like. And I don't think he would go out there and, I mean, I'm sure he's done it in the past, but how many stone cold guarantees has he thrown out on a team that's 500, a game above 500? I can't imagine he's done it. I remember the 22-23 team where the Warriors they were all right? They beat the Kings in the first round. It was they 5 or 6 seed that year. Either way, they were a road dog in the first round of the NBA playoffs. And I don't think he said a word all year about them being title contenders. He just kind of shut his mouth and said, yeah, I mean, they did start to pick it up a little bit, you know, him and Klay Thompson when Curry went for 50 in that game against the Sacramento Kings, game 7. And they all said, like, are you really going to doubt a champion? And may have given those subliminal messages there. But in terms of actually coming out and flat out saying straight into the camera, we're winning an NBA championship, I don't know how many times he's done it. Chat, you can help me out with that. You may have the counter over under 2.5. I'd probably take the over. But anyways, I'm wondering, like, is it just looking at 2 superstars, Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry, saying, hey, everyone else is going to fall in line. I'm going to take care of everyone else. And these 2 are going to lead us to the promised land. Is that what he's kind of doing here? Thinks Steph and Jimmy's going to be an invincible tag team together? It kind of reminds me of a story that Lorenzo Neal told me, the should-be Hall of Fame fullback, one of the best ever. You can hear him on 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area, former co-host of mine, told me a story of Mike Silver, Bay Area guy, Bay Area reporter. It's a great one, right? He said that they all went to a bar one night, and it was Lorenzo Neal, it was Chuck Liddell, it was Ray Lewis, and it was Michael Phelps. Ray Lewis, Michael Phelps, Chuck Liddell, Lorenzo Neal, and Mike Silver. And Lorenzo Neal said Mike Silver would have said anything that night. He felt very confident out there. That's how I kind of feel with Draymond right now. He sees these 2 guys in the way that they can lead a team in different ways, right? Opposites attract in different ways, and says, oh, we're getting everyone in line here, and we're riding these coattails to an NBA championship. Because he even said this is no big 3. He basically said, like, it's Jimmy, it's Steph, and it's everyone else. I'm here to fall in line and help this team, ride these guys to an NBA championship. Now to the schedule. No one loves schedule podcasting. Look, it's NBA All-Star game. We got 4 days to figure out content before our next basketball game. Schedule's an easy one, but we're not going up and down, picking win, lose, whatever it may be. That's terrible radio. Instead, we look at it this way. It's better go now time. There's 27 games, no time for ironing things out. You're 3.5 games in the hole. You got to start winning and winning a lot. The good news is the schedule is favorable. Only 9 of the 27 remaining games are against top 6 teams in the West or the East. That means 18 games are against play-in teams or worse. So this is essentially an extended play-in. Draymond Green even said it. He said, like, these next 27 games, we're treating it like the playoffs or an extended play-in, whichever works. But you're going to have your chances to jump coming up here because there are a lot of teams that you're fighting for in terms of seeding that you will be playing head-to-head, specifically later on in the season. Like the last game of the year is against the LA Clippers. Put yourself in a position where you're a half game back and bam, you go into the final day of the regular season and all of a sudden you feel like the We Believe Warriors, right? Sneaking into the playoffs at the very end. Now it's different, obviously, with the play-in, but playoffs, 6 seed, that's what they're fighting for. Live to see another day. So this is your play-in tournament. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. If you do that, then the Warriors are good. No more slipping up to the Nets. You can't lose a 17-point lead to the Spurs. You better not lose to the Raptors again. You better beat Miami in that revenge game. The Warriors have a lot of winnable games on this schedule. But they lost those same winnable games 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 2 months ago. They've lost a lot of these games. Now, that was before Jimmy Butler. He clearly makes a huge difference. He brings an it factor to this team, and we're going to talk about the play of Brandon Bajemski and Buddy Hield coming up, and I think Jimmy Butler's addition affects those two in a positive way tremendously with the gravity that Butler brings specifically in the paint area where he can free those two up for 3-point shots. But the Warriors better start winning right now. It's as simple as that. And to Draymond Green, who says that the Warriors are winning an NBA championship, kudos. I respect that. I want someone to go out there on national TV and give it to him. And Steph kind of said the same thing, but at the same time, he went from, I love someone that has that much confidence. It's Draymond. And then right after that sentence followed it up with, but he gave the old but. We still got a lot of work to do in figuring this thing out. So there's work to be done.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Imagine going to the big game this Sunday. That's what a lot of the people around me here on Radio Row are going to do, and the fans who are coming to New Orleans. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have time searching. Inspiration makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and take the work on tickets. Gametime. Download Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Getting Ja Morant going, coming out of the All-Star break.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast.
Jaren Jackson Jr. is unquestionably the best Memphis Grizzlies player this season, right? The All-Star selection, likely All-NBA. Jaren's the guy. Make no mistake, though. If the Memphis Grizzlies are going to go on a postseason run, they need Ja Morant. Ja Morant has to be the Ja Morant of old. Maybe not in terms of mentality, no matter how he talks on social media about getting back into dunking. I'll believe that when I see it, too. Ja being a consistent contributor to this Grizzlies roster at the caliber of player that we know Ja can be. That has to be a focus for Coach Taylor Jenkins and his staff going into this post-All-Star stretch. Ja is the X factor. We'll talk about other X factors later on in the show, but none of this matters if Ja Morant is not Ja Morant. They are not making a run to the Western Conference Finals without him in that mix. How do you get him going? The first thing that you have to do is you have to prioritize getting him different looks as a scorer. That matters a lot because, especially against teams like the Los Angeles Clippers, against teams like the Houston Rockets, squads that he is eventually going to run into, you have to be able to get him going offensively. And part of that is helping him get to the rim and finish efficiently. He is finishing, per Cleaning the Glass, at 59% at the rim. That is the worst mark since his rookie season. The worst mark since his rookie of the season, according to Cleaning the Glass. That puts him in the 40th percentile for shooting efficiency. That is a problem, especially for somebody like Morant, who so much of his game is predicated on that space. But it's important to point out that it's not just his shooting at the rim that is down. His mid-range shooting is among the worst that he's had in several years. His three-point shooting, not atrocious at 34%, but that is something that you would like to continue to see growth in as well. And it's important to acknowledge that a lot of this comes down to Ja, right? It's Ja Morant prioritizing hitting those shots, getting to those spots. It's Ja utilizing his frame and how he finishes at and around the rim to get those easy buckets. Because Ja is not having the same success that he has had in the past in terms of finding a way to create offense, in terms of efficiency. This is not the same Ja Morant that we've seen that led the league in paint scoring as a point guard. That guy's not on the floor right now. How do you get him back? For me, it begins with his work with Zach Edey, who he has a pretty good relationship with in terms of a plus minus. Among all the starters, the Morant, Bane, Wells, Jackson Jr., Edey, starting five. Ja's plus 18.3 net rating or efficiency rating, again, per Cleaning the Glass and Fast Break Breakfast on X, that's the best that Ja has with anybody. Edey is to Ja as Steven Adams was to Ja, setting screens, enabling Morant to get downhill and get to the rim. But an important piece to that, and it's not all on Ja, is Taylor Jenkins acknowledging that that is where Ja Morant thrives. If playing fewer pick and roll sets is making your offense as a whole better, but individually is limiting Ja Morant, we are getting to the stage of the season where it has to be about maximizing your best players. Doesn't mean you throw out an offense that has led to one of the most prolific point outputs in NBA history. You maintain those things. But Taylor Jenkins himself has said, even in recent weeks, that the entire offense has not been implemented yet. Now's the time to do some more pick and roll stuff. Now is the time to get Ja Morant going downhill and having those screens be set for him and doing it early in games so Ja can get into a rhythm. Because if Morant is not able to be on the floor consistently and getting into those sets consistently, there are major concerns that I have about what Morant is going to be able to do offensively. He has to be productive in that space. And that availability piece, of course, is key for Ja. Ja has only played in 32 games so far this season, according to basketballreference.com. For comparison's sake, Jaren Jackson Jr. has played in 52 games. Desmond Bane has had his own injury issues this year, but he's played in 43 games. So Ja has missed a lot of time. Just being on the floor with these guys is going to pay dividends and increasing those minutes. Again, we talk a lot about the pace of the Memphis Grizzlies, how fast they play. Desmond Bane is the only player on the roster who averages more than 30 minutes a game. Jaren Jackson Jr. is right under it at 29.8. Ja only plays 28.8 minutes a game. I can tell you right now that if those minute totals stay the same, especially for Morant, but it's true of all three of them, if those minutes per game numbers stay the same going into the playoffs, you are going to have a very angry fan base, and I am going to support that anger. Your best players have to play. Your best players have to play. Scottie Pippen Jr. isn't one of your best players. He just isn't. He should not be taking those minutes. You want to play Zach Edey fewer minutes? He's averaging only about 20 minutes or so a game. Cool. I understand that. He should still be the starter because he does so well with Morant. And I would argue because he does so well with Morant, he should see those minutes increase. Jenkins has to trust these rookies a little bit more, especially Edey, because Edey helps maximize what Ja does best, creating that space for him to work off the dribble and get to the rim. I would also like to see Ja do more work alongside the likes of Luke Kennard, because Luke Kennard has a shooting capacity that is similar to Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane is a better basketball player than Luke Kennard, but Kennard can marry the two things because Ja has a solid relationship in terms of playing with Scottie Pippen Jr. Scottie Pippen Jr. plays better with Brandon Clark and Gigi, ironically, going back to those reserve minutes I was talking about. But Ja and Pippen Jr. play better together than you would think. Kennard does a lot of the same things as Pippen Jr., not the defender that Scottie is, admittedly, but Kennard is a better three-point shooter, and he can facilitate offense, and he allows for Ja to maximize what he can do on that particular end of the floor. And with Vince Williams Jr. back in the mold, you can have Kennard and Vince Williams Jr. next to Ja. And those are two secondary facilitators of offense that enable Ja to get off the ball more. If you want to do a lot of this pick and roll or non-pick and roll action, when Ja's on the floor, make him a wing. Not a true shooting guard for obvious reasons, but have him be the one that does the slashing and the cutting. Put him in that position. He's one of the most athletic players in the NBA. Don't expect him to have to force initiation and then let others cut and slash off of him. Let him be the one that does that stuff. Put him in those screen and dunker spot situations. Be creative. Think outside the box. But I can tell you this. You are not going anywhere as an organization in the postseason if Ja Morant is the Ja Morant that he is right now. The Grizzlies could very well lose in the first round in a loaded Western Conference. You need Ja Morant to get back to what he does best. He needs to be on the floor first and foremost. That's a very fair point. But assuming that availability, you need Ja Morant to slash and cut and be aggressive and attack in the lane. And as he grows and develops his game, that's more of an off-season thing. The floater coming back. That should be more consistent now. But a mid-range jumper, the three-point shot, he has to keep building that stuff. Hopefully in a year where he doesn't have an injury to rehab from, fingers crossed, he can do just that. But Ja needs to be unleashed. He is the X factor. If he doesn't get there, Memphis is not going anywhere.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, how about you combine those live bets into a same-game parlay? I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps me in the moment. Every exciting bounce of the ball, every late game rally, every clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. And when you get paid, and when you win, you get paid instantly. You get paid. You get paid. As we draw closer to the NCAA tournament, now's a great time to take a look at the Final Four odds. Auburn and Duke lead the way. Minus 150 and minus 115. My goodness. Maybe a more intriguing play. The Terrapins of Maryland at 10-1. Analytics love the Terps, as well as the Kentucky Wildcats, who sit at 8-1 to make the Final Four. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
We make some bold predictions for the final third of the season.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
The defense. So my bold prediction is that the rest of the way out, the Knicks are a top 10 defense. So the measure that I generally go with is points per 100 possessions. It's kind of everybody's go-to stat. If you just need a quick catch-all, it evens out for pace and everything. So slower teams are traditionally going to give up less raw points per game, whatever, but points per possession, points per 100 possessions gives you an idea of everybody on the same playing field per every 100 possessions. What is the team let up? The Knicks right now, as we hit the All-Star break, I did not realize quite how far they had slipped. They are actually at 20th in the league right now at 115 points per 100 possessions per Basketball Reference. I guess they're technically tied for 19th. But yeah, them and the Brooklyn Nets of all teams are tied at 115 points per 100 possessions right now. That said, the margin to move up 10 whole spaces is 2 points. So 2 points per 100 possessions difference. They can move all the way up to where the Detroit Pistons are at 113 points per 100 possessions. That would officially make them a top 10 defense in terms of points per 100 possession or net rating, or I should say defensive rating is sometimes, how that's categorized depending on where you get your defensive rating stats from. But the big, addition here obviously is Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby. I mean, it shouldn't be discounted. They've been without him for a few games and it's been a little rough. They've still done fairly well without him, but still worth noting that they've been without OG and he's a key part of what they hope to do going into the postseason. But Mitchell Robinson will be a huge addition, especially if, and I mean, just from looking at him, he looks like he's in really good shape right now. From what everyone is saying within the organization, the beat writers, Mitch himself, all kinds of people, he is in some of the best shape of his NBA career right now. It bears reminding the Knicks were 9th in defensive rating last year before Mitchell Robinson went down. And then in that time from the Mitch injury in December until when OG Anunoby showed up, they were 26th. So similar results to where they're at right now. They were a little worse. I mean, there were times where I think for like a 5 to 7 game stretch, they were like 30th in the NBA during that time. Right after Mitch got hurt, and you and I know we're really worried about that a little over a year ago now. But yeah, I think Mitch coming back is going to be huge. It's going to give them that more traditional rim protector that Tibbs likes so much. It's going to give them the opportunity to go to that lineup off the bench. It's going to give them an opportunity to have Cat out there to space the floor and have Mitch out there, hopefully, for some of the lineups and try to recreate some of the Gobert type magic from Minnesota. But yeah, all in all, I think I looking at the numbers and looking at it in terms of just what the margin is on the points per 100 possessions, I don't think it's a stretch to say that just adding Mitch to this team will get the Knicks back 2 points or perhaps even more than 2 points per 100 possessions the rest of the season out.
Yeah, I think it's fair to make that argument. I think we still have to see what version of Mitchell Robinson we're getting. And I know there's been some inconsistency in terms of the reporting of when he's coming back. I know Shams Charania had that, like, he should be back, like, if I'm remembering correctly, like right after the All-Star break. And then we've heard from Ian Begley, and he said, like, essentially, like, it's not a guarantee right now that he's going to be playing 5-on-5 post All-Star break. And he would personally be concerned about Mitch the rest of the way if he's not playing 5-on-5 at that point. And we just continue to hear mixed things. So I almost don't want to put too many eggs in that basket, even though mentally and emotionally I already have to some extent. But to your point, if he is back, I don't see any reason why they can't play dramatically better defense when he's on the floor. To me, the second question is, like, how much does he actually play? Because I think the rest of the season, he's probably a 15-minute a game guy for the regular season, at least. I think they're going to be incredibly cautious as they have been in ramping him up and reincorporating him. And then there's the question we've all been asking, like, what is the trade-off to having Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup? Maybe with him and Cat, you're similar to what the Wolves were last year, and you're actually one of the best defenses in basketball, and you're taking off a guy. Presumably, Josh Hart would be the guy off the floor in those lineups who has been like a kind of a mixed bag defensively this year. But is the offense good enough to support that? Can you survive without, like, having that 5-out spacing? And no Dante DiVincenzo to bail you out this year. So Those are sort of my lingering questions. It's just how much can you get to the Mitchell Robinson lineup? But I think it might be fair to argue, even if he's playing 15 minutes a game, that might make 2 points. 2 points is $1 in a night. That might make all the difference. Like one play Mitchell Robinson makes that Precious Achiuwa wasn't making or Jericho Sims wasn't making, I think is totally reasonable.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a little, like, I know you just said, like, no Dante to bail you out or whatever, but, like, I also think just because of how things are anecdotally, like where we kind of look at this thing game to game, and there are certain games where the Knicks just can't seem to make a shot, and it's really frustrating and whatever, like, for as much as that sort of is the case, they are still 5th in the NBA in 3-point percentage this year. Like they're still playing quite well in that regard. And then I guess the other thing is that Mitch sort of solves that problem on the days when the shot isn't going in. And like we've literally seen that produce a I'm trying to remember
Third best offense in the NBA 2 years ago, if that's what you're thinking.
Right, that's exactly the number I was looking for. Yeah, where they were a top 5 offense with a style that was basically predicated on getting offensive rebounds and getting Mitchell Robinson basically being the main part of that. Like Hartenstein was less of a factor that season than he was last season when he kind of made the turn that eventually got him the big contract and to the Thunder instead of the Knicks. But like, Mitch was definitely the catalyst of the offensive rebounding and everything that season that helped turn the Knicks into a high-powered offense then. So the way that I look at him is like, I don't see any way that he is not additive on offense in some ways. And, the nice thing is that now you finally, after all these years, do have another option you can throw out there if for whatever reason a team is exploiting him, if they're hacking him or whatever and putting him on the free throw line, if he gets an offensive rebound, if his hands just aren't there in one particular game, which sometimes happens. Like he does have butterfingers sometimes and can't seem to like finish around the rim or whatever, whatever the case may be. If he's not having the best game, then sure, you can keep him to like 10 minutes that night, just have him spell Cat and then have Cat play the same way that you've been playing the whole season, which is great. You also still have Precious Achiuwa as sort of a fallback option. But to me, I just look at it. I don't see any way that adding Mitch isn't gonna be a huge thing for this team. Again, should he come back in a timely manner? Like I'm sort of no sourcing or anything. I don't know, but just it seems to me like he's trending the right direction. I mean, he's definitely like running at full speed and everything based off what we were seeing like on social media and stuff. Like he looks pretty comfortable. He's clearly in good shape. So I'm kind of more inclined to believe that we're just going to get the first injury report or two after the Knicks get back from the All-Star break. It's going to be like Mitchell Robinson will be on there questionable. And that pretty much means he's going to play. But maybe I'll be wrong about that. But when that does happen, I feel like he's going to definitely be additive to this defense and possibly even to the offense. But I think he's going to help that defense get back in the top 10 again.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think my offensive concerns, and maybe it's contradictory to what I said before, but should be more focused on the playoffs, where 2 years ago they completely fell off, not because of Mitch, but just because of like a total lack of spacing and shooting. And even now, like even if you like we I think it's worth reemphasizing this point. Like you could say Mitchell Robinson at center in the starting lineup cuts out their spacing. It's still dramatically better spacing than Mitchell Robinson has played with at any point in his career outside of maybe the Sixers series last year. Once they went to those like having DiVincenzo, Anunoby, I don't know, maybe Bogdanovich, Brunson out with him. Like last year they were able to get to some shooting, but it was only after trading away RJ Barrett that was actually a thing, because before that he was always playing with RJ, he was always playing with Julius, basically two guys that nobody guarded. If right now you have a lineup around him of Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Cat, that is 4 guys you have to guard behind the arc. And I was going to say, when you noted their 5th in 3-point percentage, I was going to say, my concern is their 27th in 3-point rate. But Mitchell Robinson to Josh Hart doesn't make a huge difference in that, because Josh just does not get up a ton of threes. So there are some arguments for it, beyond the fact that like if he is only playing 15 minutes, that time might not be, likely mostly won't be with the starters. It'll likely be him, like 2 wings, Payne and Deuce, and those are lineups that can kind of survive the lack of spacing. So to me, it's just a question, like maybe like I'm getting too in depth on this and leading more into my lineup conversation, but I do think it's just a question of how much time and how ready is he to have a big effect. But to your point, if he's in great shape, if he's a little bit leaner, even if it's only 15 minutes a game, that can be more than enough.